Good morning, traders. Welcome to today's market review. This is Razak at CM Trading. Today is January 24, 2022, and today is Monday morning. So I want to welcome everybody back after a decent weekend. Now, looking at the highlights of the day, the U.S. markets get a bounce, but the question is how much further? Now, there's no major economic events scheduled for today. So as we take an assessment at the following markets, starting out with the Forex symbols, we're watching the U.S. dollar continue to strengthen versus the major pairs. And looking at the indices, the Dow Jones and the NASDAQ take a bounce. Let's take a look if it's a dead cat bounce. We're going to see. And looking at commodities, oil bounces as well back to $85 a barrel, and gold showing some resilience at $18.41. Now looking at the stocks, Microsoft breaks further down. That is below $300 a share. And lastly, looking at Bitcoin, continues to sell off closer to our second support line. So let's take a look at the markets and see what we can expect from today's trading. So here we go. We're going to start with the Gbp Usd because nothing happening with the euro. Okay, we're slowly getting back into this 135 level, and we are selling off quite aggressively, even though that it seems a little bit less of a incline, but nevertheless it is selling off. Now this is a support level right here. I do expect a bounce, okay, sometime today. Not sure if we've finished with the sell-off in the US markets, but this is something that is happening in real time. Now looking at the Aussie USD, same story, okay, getting back to those lower levels on a 4-hour chart, and you can see we are close to supportish area, okay, which is really very important here. Now looking at the commodities, first looking at gold, resilient at 1842 and not retracing. That's a good sign. And this is, for all intents and purposes, a bona fide upwards momentum, especially since it has a trend line. If we look at that trend line, boom, boom, and boom. Okay, so that's a pretty steep trend line on the upside there. So that's pretty decent. Now looking at oil, also resilient at $85 a barrel. We're looking also at a 4-hour chart. And so is it a triple top? Not sure. Okay, it is above the moving averages, both the 30-day and the 8-day moving average. So it's relatively still very, very strong. Now looking at the U.S. market, starting out with the Dow Jones. Dow Jones, look at that sell-off. Okay, we got a little bit of a bounce this morning at 32. We're at 34,100, and we went up to 34,200, and now we're just like petering out here, as you could see. But this may find itself as a double bottom here, and then we may bounce today, okay, because this has capitulated to levels where it might be a bargain to actually buy these stocks. Now looking at the NASDAQ, look at that. That's really the sharpest one. And this is really an important level, okay? For the NASDAQ, 14,473 is really very important. I would guess, okay, I would really take a educated guess here that if we saw this as a triple bottom and it does bounce, it would bounce somewhere between 16,500 and 14,400. So it would bounce somewhere up until this level, 15,600. That's my guess. Okay, may happen, may not happen, but if I'm looking for a bounce, that's where I'm from. If we break this level down here, 14,400, we could see ourselves back in that 12,000 range. Okay, a scary thought, but the markets are finally catching up to themselves with what's happening in the markets. Now looking at the individual stocks, they're all down, so there's no real impetus for us to bounce until these stocks individually bounce. Okay, Apple sold off to 163. Facebook, look at that, back on its low of 304. Microsoft below 300 at 297. And looking at Amazon, okay, this was the hardest hit. If we look at a 4-hour chart, you could see that. Look at that nosedive. I mean, to give us a perspective, a daily, I mean, this is really going to somewhere where we were since the beginning of the pandemic, okay? Well, this is showing us the pandemic is over. And, you know, at the end of the day, it's having so much ramifications. So if it breaks this level, okay, this is really a gap up, and this was never below this area. This is why all these areas are so important, these support areas, and they're giving us a tremendous opportunity to buy on the upside. Now, looking at Jpmorgan also, look at that nosedive as well. I mean, you got to go into a weekly chart to give us a perspective here. But again, it's right there at the bottom of the range. Okay, when we look at a weekly chart, this is really very important levels that we're hitting here. So we must get that bounce today. Otherwise, we're going to go further down. Now, looking lastly at Bitcoin trading at 34,800. almost hugging that support level at 33,500-ish level. That's really an important level for us to be hugging. So keep that in mind as this is all happening all at the same time. Wish everybody a great trading day. Thank you.